Good day, you're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos and here are today's top stories. Hands up motorists, oil companies are expected to implement a big-time hike in pump prices this week. Now, despite dipping below $100 billion for the first time in nearly 2 years, the country's dollar reserves remain sufficient according to the Bangko Sentral. Finance Chief Ben Diokno believes the dole-out of financial aid in relation to the pandemic is already a waste of public funds. Diokno says the giving out of COVID-19 ayuda must be stopped. Operator or regulator, DOF calls on PAGCOR to settle its seemingly conflicting roles. Let's begin our broadcast with the Bangko Sentral assuring the public that the country's dollar reserves remains adequate despite dropping below $100 billion in July. BSP Governor Philippine says that while the tightening of the U.S. Fed has caused the peso to depreciate, and while monetary authorities sold some buffer stock, reserves are still at a comfortable and adequate level. Having an ample forex buffer is an assurance that a country can repay its debt in the event of an economic downturn and also serves as a safeguard from market volatility. The peso touched its all-time low of 56.45 against the greenback in July. Year-to-date, the local currency has weakened by 6 pesos. Meanwhile, the country's gross international reserves fell for the first time since August 2020 to nearly $99 billion last month. The GIR level has been declining since February this year. S&P Global Ratings echoes the Bangko Sentral's view, saying that despite the declines, the overall level remains very high. Now, heads up motorists, a big-time oil price hike is expected to be implemented tomorrow following weeks of rollbacks. UniOil Philippines projects diesel prices to increase by up to 6 pesos and 10 centavos per liter, while per liter prices of gasoline are expected to climb by 1 peso and 40 centavos. The Energy Department attributes the price hike to an increase in demand as some countries approach the winter and harvest seasons. The Oil Industry Management Bureau says another possible factor are supply concerns brought by the Russia-Ukraine war.
Petroleum products or even the LPG, heating fuel. So doon sa bansang malamig, ginagamit siya para pang-init po. Tapos may mga bansa din po na harvest season sila. So ganun din po, ginagamit ng petroleum products. So dahilan po dito para tumaas ang demand o pangangailangan sa petroleum products.
Now let's do a quick check on smaller supermarkets and how they are doing. That's after the country's largest retailers opted to cut down the price of refined sugar to 70 pesos per kilo. We have on the show Stephen Kua, president of the Philippine Amalgamated Supermarkets Association, or PAGCOR. Stephen, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Jess.
All right, so first things first, have you felt the impact of that move by the larger supermarkets to actually lower sugar prices to 70 pesos per kilo?
Very difficult to tell. Number one, those are 3 big chains, so we don't know what's happening in all the stores of these 3 chains. No, that said, they have 2 of those. Well, at least one of those who committed, one of the chains, seems to have changed their mind and is offering washed instead of white sugar. No, although the other chain, which said they wanted to sell washed sugar at 70, I saw that they did have a particular brand, lesser known brand of white refined sugar selling at 70. So it's a bit mixed, but it's really up to the diskarte na ng mamimili. No,
But has that in any way affected your store members, the smaller retailers? In a way, have you at least have some of your members decided to at least adjust their prices as well? Maybe not 70 pesos per kilo, just to cope as well with the lowering of prices with the larger supermarkets.
Very difficult. Like I said, sugar is only one component or one item, commodity in the grocery basket. No, I haven't seen people lining up or queuing in the sections for sugar in the bigger chain of supermarkets. No, the bigger the 3 that are involved in selling 70 a kilo. I haven't seen people queuing up and in a hurry to buy as much as they can because number one, it's limited to 1 kilo per person. No? So very difficult to tell if that has affected already the sales of the other supermarkets who are not involved in offering sugar at 70 a kilo, white sugar.
But so far, can you give us an idea how much is white refined sugar retailing for, and when do you see at least sugar prices going down? I mean, you have some producers suggesting or even projecting that prices could go down as early as September.
It's doing around 98 to 105. No, in the markets, I think they were selling at 110. No, the public markets, no, the wet markets. 110 a kilo. So that's just for sugar, no? Just if you'll notice today, your 100 peso bill will just buy you a little over a liter of fuel, a kilo of sugar, 1 bulb of white onion, or 2 kilos of salt, no? So you people have to be very discriminating and prioritize how they spend these days. Yeah.
And speaking of which, I mean, you also have the DTI upgrading or updating rather their SRP for various goods. You have your canned sardines, milk, like what you mentioned, even salt. Is that affecting consumer behavior? So far, what have you noticed?
Yes, we are. We have always been suggesting that there is no need for SRP unless there's a calamity or state of national emergency. No, that's what SRP is supposed to be for. No, because it is a price regulating mechanism. No, it's price control. Maybe this is as good a time for SRP for DTI, sorry, to lift the use of SRP until end of the year and see what happens. No, I mean if retailers abuse or distributors abuse or manufacturers abuse this, then I think it's the fall of these sectors, the retailers or not, because people will not buy their products, right? Because DTI came out with a list for Noche Buena items, but salt is going up, so again they have to change the list all over again. That's why they don't print any more big posters for supermarkets to post on their in their selling areas, no, because these prices keep changing. So that's a lot of work for DTI, no, also. So what I'm saying is, let the market find. Let the manufacturers find the right place for their products. To be able to position their products and brands well. No, that will be a free enterprise truly at work.
Okay, like what you mentioned earlier, put on hold muna yung SRP at least until the end of the year. But also you pointed out the price of salt here. Again, another impending agricultural shortage here. Is that already being reflected on the ground? Is supply running low or are prices increasing for salt?
Prices, we've been informed, we've been advised by one manufacturer at least. No, I think it's a leading local brand, which is, they said prices will go up by 33%. So far, we haven't ordered yet. Okay, our supermarkets haven't really seen the price increase. No, but they said they were going to increase by 33%. Because a lot of our salt, as it seems, is all imported, especially for commercial and industrial use. No, I've spoken with someone who's been importing salt, and he says everything I sell is imported. No, I don't know which report, but I think I read somewhere 93% of our salt is imported, considering our long coastline. No, yeah.
Okay, you mentioned one manufacturer is warning of the possibility of these prices of salt increasing by 33%. For the better understanding and appreciation of our viewers, monetary value ng 33%, magkano yun, sir, and when are they at least expecting that to take effect?
Okay, around at 40 plus a kilo, so natin 45 a kilo, okay, averaging it out, 45 a kilo, so 30%, that's another one third of 45, no? So that's another more than 10 pesos increase, no? So abot na close to 60 a kilo, no? Malaki yun, no? Lalo na kung karinderya ka and you use it for cooking, no? Or household with big households, no, which use a lot of salt, no, medyo malaki yun. It'll eat into your budget.
And do they have at least a projection as to when they could possibly implement this price hike for salt?
I think it's already effective immediately if stores order, if supermarkets order, no. So far, hindi naman ganun kalakas ang bentahan ng asin. Sa palengke mas malakas eh. Sa supermarkets, people sometimes forget to get salt. No? So sometimes it's in the wet market where you buy food to cook, immediately you'll think, I need salt. Right?
So kumbaga, it's not as worrisome as what we're experiencing with sugar.
Correct. Because we are, as a country, as a people, sweet tooth tayo eh. So we eat a lot of sweets or sweetened food. Yeah.
Of course, but this time again, Noche Buena season coming up. When do you expect to see price adjustments for Noche Buena items? You have the DTI proposing that consumers as early as now purchase Christmas goods. What's your suggestion here?
I suggest for the consumers to go out and look for the sale products in a supermarket. A lot of these manufacturers still have to make up for the last 2-3 years wherein the pandemic has affected their sales targets and their bottom lines. No, so a lot of them will still be pushing out their products. In the sales section, buy 2 take 1 free, less 30%. No, go for those deals because it's a win-win situation both for you, the manufacturer, and their employees.
All right. Thank you very much again for your insights and your time this morning. Stephen Kua, President of the Philippine Amalgamated Supermarkets Association.
Thank you.
Now let's pause for a quick break, but coming right up after that. Finance Chief Ben Diokno says the government no longer needs to give out any more COVID-19 ayuda to poor households. More of that and other stories when Businessworld Live returns. Stay with us. And you're still watching Businessworld Live here on One News. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Finance Chief Ben Diokno says COVID-19 ayuda should be stopped. During the budget briefings at the House of Representatives, Diokno explained that the country has, quote, fully recovered from the pandemic. Thus, he believes that the government no longer needs to give out any more COVID-related ayuda to poor Filipino households. Although Diokno clarified that other assistance such as social protection programs and aid for senior citizens should continue.
On the giving of ayuda in relation to the crisis, I think that should already be discontinued because we have actually fully recovered, okay? And because of the limited fiscal space.
ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro criticized Diokno's latest statement. Castro said the government still has a responsibility to help poor Filipinos who have yet to recover from the government's, quote, failed pandemic response. The lawmaker reminded Diokno that public funds come from people's taxes. She added that if the finance chief is so concerned about wasting public funds, then it should support increasing taxes of the rich. The Philippine Economic Zone Authority, or PEZA board, has deferred approval of the extension of the work-from-home scheme for IT BPO firms. PEZA OIC Tereso Panga says the proposed extension to March 2023 has already been, quote, approved in principle. However, the final approval was deferred by the PEZA board during its August 26 meeting. Panga cited the need to revise the memorandum to include inputs of the PEZA board that the 30% work from home is a long-standing policy and not just a business continuity plan measure. Panga clarifies that they will push to approve the extension before the earlier resolution expires on September 12. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. led the National Heroes Day commemoration at the Libingan ng mga Bayani. Together with the members of the Philippine Army, Marcos Jr. honored fallen heroes by joining the flag ceremony and wreath-laying activities. In a statement, the president also reminded Filipinos that the said legacy of heroism lives on in the hearts of medical professionals, civil servants, uniformed personnel, and even ordinary citizens who work to keep the Filipino dream alive. The chief executive said that the deeds of our heroes remind us not just of the nobility of our race, but also invite us to take part in nation building. The Finance Department says PAGCOR should present its plans to resolve seemingly conflicting roles as an operator and a regulator. Finance Secretary Ben Diokno said the administration is open to supporting a supplemental budget possibly funded by the privatization of GOCCs like PAGCOR. Diokno says such additional resources could help the economy grow and recover. However, for think tank InfraWatch PH, the idea that there's conflict of interest in PAGCOR's role as both regulator and operator is just an excuse for those who have an agenda in privatizing PAGCOR-operated casinos. Now, this from the Philippine Star. The Philippine Competition Commission, or PCC, is set to open a preliminary inquiry into the complaint filed by Dito Telecommunity against Globe and Smart. The antitrust regulator said it found reasonable grounds to look into the allegations of Dennis Ui's Dito against the two other telco players. The commission said its enforcement office will check if Globe and Smart violated the Philippine Competition Act. It will also coordinate and consult with the NTC for regulatory and technical considerations as it conducts the investigation. For its part, Smart Communications welcomes the opportunity to reaffirm before the PCC its commitment of fostering healthy competition in the sector. Smart also expressed its willingness to assist and cooperate with the PCC's preliminary inquiry. Some major economies are expecting big economic data, including GDP and inflation figures, pouring in the coming days. Let's take a look at the week ahead, courtesy of Bloomberg.
The Federal Open Market Committee's overarching focus right now is to bring inflation back down to our 2% goal.
I think we're going to have to move them up, and this is based on just my current read of the data, above 4%, and probably need to hold them there next year.
Inflation is extremely high, sort of unimaginable. The levels we're at were unimaginable 18 months ago.
We have to get interest rates higher to slow down demand and bring inflation back to our target.
We get to above 3.4 by year end. We're at or above 3.4. And then we see, we have to let some of this play out.
It could be over 4%. I don't think that's out of the question.
I've said 3.75 to 4% by the end of this year. I'd like to get to that level, and sooner is better.
That's Fed officials at Jackson Hole speaking about the outlook for rate hikes and inflation. One thing they all agreed on is they're going up. Well, let's take a look now at the week ahead. We'll be getting the latest jobs report ahead of the Fed's September policy meeting. Economists project healthy payrolls gain again, with unemployment seen holding at 3.5%. In China, PMIs are set to be released on Wednesday. Expectations are the figures to stay weak as the property slump, COVID flare-ups, and power shortages continue to hamper recovery. We'll also be watching the euro area inflation this week, which is predicted to hit a record, and get key GDP data out of South Korea and India, Paul.
China's megabanks are set to report earnings this week as we watch for any impacts from the property crisis and the mortgage payment boycott. The earnings come with some Chinese banks employing unusual practices to inflate their loan volumes as they struggle to meet government demands to pump more credit into the system. And that is your week ahead.
And those are the biggest stories in the economic and corporate front today. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News, all sides, all the time. Don't go away. We'll give you some updates on financial markets when Businessworld Live returns. Stay with us. And you're still watching Businessworld Live here on One News. I'm Jes Delos Santos. The local bourse on a trading break today as the country observes National Heroes Day. But elsewhere in the globe, action continues. Over in Wall Street, U.S. futures tanked following a two-year Treasury yield, which went on a two-year high. That comes after Fed Chair Jerome Powell hinted at higher for longer interest rates to curb inflation. He even warned against loosening policy prematurely. As you can see right here, the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 futures in the red. The Nasdaq, however, somehow on the upside here. The rest of Asia, likewise, in the same trajectory here as U.S. futures. A bloodbath so far for regional stocks here in China. Industrial earnings show how firms are suffering from weakening demand. PMI data expected to be released on Wednesday, likely to show recovery being battered from all sides. As you can see right here, Shanghai and Shenzhen both on the downside here. The Shanghai at least down by 0.6%. Hang Seng over in Hong Kong also in the red. edging lower by over 8%. Korea, on the other hand, keeping doors open for another outsized rate hike following the Fed should inflation remain uncontrollable. As you can see right here, the Kospi is down by 2.25% so far. Japan, on the other hand, is maintaining that it should continue with easy monetary policy for now. Japan, as you can see right here, you have the topics down by over 2%. Same scenario as well for the Nikkei, now in the red by close to 3%. And Australia, signs of much needed acceleration in wage growth taking hold. But as you can see right here, the S&P 200 is down by 2.25%. Again, the PSCI close for National Heroes Day. But let's see how the main index at least fared so far in the month. It's been a stellar month for the index despite the so-called ghost month. Shares have been up close to 7% over a one-month period. That's an additional 400 points since starting August at the 6,300 level. Various factors here. You have Luis Limlingan of Regina Capital attributing that to signs of peaking inflation in the U.S. Mike Ricafort of RCBC, on the other hand, says, that's pretty much buoyed as well by better corporate earnings. But Ricafort warning that should the war in Ukraine drag on, then that could at least increase volatility in the financial markets. Let's see how we close out the month as trading resumes tomorrow. And that's it for today, August 29, 2022. Join us again tomorrow at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe. Philippines, we are One News, all sides, all the time.